What makes something truly strong? I'm not talking about just brute force, but that ability to get knocked down and pop right back up. That's resilience. And today, we're going to dive into the natural world to figure out what really separates a system that can bend from one that just breaks. So, what's the secret sauce for a strong ecosystem? Is it just about being big or maybe being super simple and efficient? Well, we're about to find out. We're going to put two very, very different environments head-to-head in a kind of crisis simulation to see which one comes out on top. All right, let's meet our contenders. In this corner, we have the tangled, messy, unbelievably diverse tropical rainforest. And in the other corner, the neat, orderly, and super uniform oil palm farm. They're both green, yeah, but as you're about to see, that's pretty much where the similarities end. Okay, so before we can test them, we've got to understand them. It's time to pop the hood and map out how everything is connected in each system. This right here is where the whole story of resilience really gets started. Whoa, just look at that. And believe it or not, this is a simplified version of the rainforest food web. You've got your producers, like all those fruit trees, you've got consumers, like orangutans, and predators, like tigers. Every single one of those lines is a connection, a relationship. It's this dense, beautiful, complicated web. Now, let's switch over to the oil palm farm. The difference is just night and day, right? Instead of that complex web, you've got a very simple straight chain. You've got the oil palm, it feeds the rats, and the rats get eaten by the snakes. That's pretty much it. It's clean, it's efficient, but boy is it simple. And this contrast shows us a super important concept perfectly: biodiversity. The rainforest is absolutely bursting with it. Tons of different species, tons of different connections. The oil palm farm, it has incredibly low biodiversity. And that one difference, well, it's going to change everything. All right, we've got our maps. Now for the really fun part. We're going to shake things up a bit. It's time for a stress test. Let's introduce what scientists call a disruption and just see what happens. So what exactly is a disruption? Well, it can be any big change, really. It could be a sudden wildfire, a new disease sweeping through, or a long, slow drought. It's anything that puts pressure on those connections we just looked at. Let's start small. We'll introduce a little disruption into our rainforest. Let's say a disease comes along that only affects one specific kind of fruit tree, the durian. So, poof, all the durian trees are gone. So what happens? The orangutan, which loves durian, is definitely impacted, but it's not a disaster. And why not? Because it also eats figs and garcinia and a bunch of other fruits. It has options. The system just adapts. That dense web of connections means there are other paths to take, and the shock just gets absorbed. The system is resilient. Okay, let's really crank up the pressure now. Scenario 2, a major disruption. A serious, long-term drought hits the rainforest. This is affecting lots of different plants right at the base of the food web. This isn't just one fruit vanishing. This is a huge resource shortage across the board. Now, the system is absolutely feeling the strain, no doubt about it. Populations are shrinking, but does it collapse? Nope. Even under all this pressure, that biodiversity gives it flexibility. Some plants are tougher against drought than others. Some animals can switch their diets. The system bends, for sure, but it doesn't break. Okay, this is the moment of truth. Let's take those same disruptions, that targeted disease or that big drought, and throw them at our simple little oil palm system. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, it's a total collapse. If a disease hits the oil palm or a drought wipes it out, there are no other options. The entire food chain just vanishes. There's no safety net. There's no complex web to absorb the shock. The very first link in the chain breaks, and the whole thing just shatters. So the results from our stress test are in, and wow, are they clear. Let's break down the verdict and really get to the heart of the principle that's at work here. This chart really just says it all, doesn't it? The rainforest has tons of diverse populations, all linked up in a complex web, and that gives it high resilience. The oil palm farm has just a few uniform populations in a simple chain, which means it has super low resilience. The key takeaway here is that complexity and variety literally create strength. The oil palm farm is a perfect example of something called a monocrop. It's a system designed for maximum efficiency, but that efficiency comes at a huge cost: resilience. You're basically putting all your eggs in one basket, and it creates a system that is incredibly fragile. So here it is, the core principle we've just seen in action. It's not about how strong any single species is, it's all about the number of connections. The more connections a system has, the better its chances are of surviving when things inevitably go wrong. The strength isn't in the pieces, it's in the network itself. So why does a lesson about rainforests and palm oil matter to you? Well, it's because this principle doesn't just apply to tropical jungles. It applies, well, pretty much everywhere.
Let's take a totally different example, the southwestern willow flycatcher. It's a bird that builds nests in a few different kinds of trees. Well, when a beetle was introduced that wiped out one of those trees, the flycatchers that lived in areas with other tree options, they were fine. But in areas where that one tree was their only option, the bird population was devastated. It's the exact same principle, just on another continent.
The rule just holds true. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the jungles of Borneo or the riverbanks of Arizona. Diversity creates stability. Having that variety of options, that web of connections, it's the ultimate insurance policy against disaster. And that kind of leaves us with one last really big question, doesn't it? Because this principle doesn't just apply to ecosystems. It applies to our economies, to our food systems, even to our own communities. So if we know for a fact that diversity is the key to resilience and strength, then how should we be designing and growing our world? Definitely something to think about.